Honorable Didi Nyoro, the MP for Keharo constituency. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to appreciate this opportunity to be invited to this very great event today. And I must say that Starbrands, you've really done a very, very magnificent event this evening. Probably all of us in our various tables, we are just seeing the table next to us, but I can confirm from here, because I can see all the tables, that this is a very, very great event and organized very, very well, including the choice of your MCs, Shiko and Otosh. You've done a very good job. I also want to applaud those who came before me on this stage, my good friends, Bwana Boshe, Dr. Wasiori, and all the others who got this opportunity. We learn by listening. And even me, when I was seated, I was equally learning. But I also want to applaud my namesake, Bwana Dongo Nyoro, and the two great ladies who came here, that is Joy, and I want to believe it's Anne, for showing us. We were actually conversing here with my colleagues on this table, Akina Dr. Wasiori, that at our age, we were not that confident. And therefore, you can only do better than all of us. And the whole world and time is ahead of you. And I'm talking about the two ladies who are 23, who are doing what we couldn't do at that age. Congratulations, and we wish you all the best. I was invited to talk about industry, and specifically the architecture of growth, and looking at Kenya's growth around industry and manufacturing. And I want to make a disclaimer that I am one of the proponents actually of manufacturing. And I respect all the business people in this hall. Whatever business we all do is adding to the figures of our economy. And even when we talk at such a place like this, many times we are giving our opinions, sometimes considered opinions, and therefore bear with us when we seem to lean on one side other than probably the expected. And I hope you know what I mean by the other speech I gave another time. I always think, and I hope you all can concur, that the state commendations that you always give as a country, Kenya, the bigger proportion of those medals and commendations, state medals, should actually go to entrepreneurs and business people. I am a politician, but I am also a businessman. And I can confirm to you, in terms of heavy lifting, an entrepreneur does more than a politician insofar as the economy is concerned. Yes, we set policy, but the people who actually do the heavy lifting is entrepreneurs who are in this hall today. Allow me to be a bit also macro, because to contextualize. And I'm on the topic that I was invited to talk. The Kenyan GDP, the gross domestic product of Kenya, maybe around, could be around 18 trillion. How is it composed? And you'll be shocked probably at this. Our Kenyan GDP at 100%, a whopping 65% of our GDP is service industry. Around 17% is manufacturing, what is called secondary production. It is actually industry, manufacturing, and the associated logistics around that. 18% is primary production in overall. Primary production is agriculture and anything else that we produce in raw form, including mining. But out of the 65% of service, most of it is also public service, because education is part of the GDP, majorly funded by government, healthcare, and the rest. But there's pure manufacturing in our country. If you remove the logistics from the secondary production, manufacturing in Kenya only accounts for 7% of our GDP, only. And it has been declining from the 80s actually to the current level. But why is manufacturing important? Why can't we then grow why can't we grow the segment that there is ease in growing it? Why can't we just grow agriculture and primary production? Because it seems it's a low-lying fruit. I have never seen any economy that has grown out of primary production, out of agriculture, out of production of milk, out of production of avocados, out of production of maize, or any other form of primary production. Not a single economy. All the economies of the world, from the US, it grew on the basis of manufacturing. Why is manufacturing important? When we talk about economic growth, that the economy is growing, when we talk about Kenya is lagging behind Singapore, lagging behind South Korea, what do we actually mean? We are 50 million Kenyans, almost the same population as South Korea, but we are bigger in terms of land size. Then one would pass that then we are more wealthy than South Korea because our land is bigger and our people are equivalent. But what distinguishes a country like Kenya and those developed ones is something we call productivity per worker. Yes, we are 50 million Kenyans, and South Koreans are that number, almost close to that. What distinguishes whether Kenya is a growing country or already grown, developed or developing, is productivity per worker. Now, what manufacturing does is to enhance productivity per worker. And how? When you are farming, when you are doing primary production, there is something we call decreasing returns to capital. That every money you deploy, when you farm your first 1 acre of land, anytime you have land, you start cultivating where it is fertile. And therefore you use less inputs for more output. Then you go higher to the areas that are not as productive, where you may need to use fertilizer, where you may need to use irrigation. And therefore inputs continue to be more. And therefore returns continue to be decimated. The other side of manufacturing is that manufacturing is based on something we call increasing returns. My brother, when you are manufacturing paint, the more paint you are producing, the less the unit cost. And that is why all the countries of the world have grown out of manufacturing, not out of primary production, and also not out of things like pure mining in raw form or agriculture in raw form. Now, if you look at countries that I'm mentioning, the US was ahead of many. And then I want you to look at this to see the sequence, and I'll be very brief, I'm almost finishing. US went ahead, grew through manufacturing majorly and industrialization. Then Western Europe, there were countries through what we call, or you have heard called the Marshall Plan, which was actually developed by the US to help some 16 countries in Europe, was also about industrialization and manufacturing. And the economies that grew out of that, including the UK and the France, and by that time what was West Germany, grew out of manufacturing, of course through the impetus given by the Marshall Plan. If you look at the other developed countries, from the US coming to Europe, the other ones now comes to Japan. Japan also grew on manufacturing. Again, coming to South Korea, that took up from there. Again, the basis of the growth was manufacturing. From South Korea, of course, a country like China from 1976 and 1978. Again, led by that time by Deng Xiaoping, through manufacturing. Countries like Vietnam, which came pretty later, again, through manufacturing. And therefore, I am here just to say that we may try all the other models in terms of the growth of our economy, but there is nothing that gives the primacy of growth in terms of accelerated growth more than manufacturing, and especially at a country where we still have to do a lot in terms of alleviating unemployment and job creation.